Simon Biesiewel was on the executive of the Psychological Association, and I became the honorary secretary. We spent a fair amount of time, almost weekly, going from Johannesburg to Pretoria to see Mr. Barnard, who was at that stage the admin chief of the Medical Council, about the recognition of psychology. And as the executive made certain decisions, we had to go and negotiate again in Pretoria. And then eventually, I can't remember which minister of health eventually conceded, and they published in the government gazette a voluntary recognition of psychologists. Not clinical psychologists, no, only psychologists. They had to drop the word clinical to get past the protest of the medical society side. So now we were voluntarily registered, and we had to register. We could now go into practice. But conditions apply. The small print, we must go through Tara Hospital, and under Wits, Professor McCrone and Lejeune, we assembled, with the help of the psychiatrist, president of Psychiatry Association, Max Veldman, and the neurologist, Professor Rudolf Geerling. With their assistance, Tara Hospital was sort of raked up as the housemanship 12 months at that stage, and we enrolled 4 people. Myself, Bram Coetzee, Arnold Lazarus, and Shirley Cohen. The 4 of us, we were first students doing our housemanship in psychology, because we were not allowed to call it clinical psychology. That was 1959. Now, at that stage, I was already past my doctorate. I left the mines because I had no further problem doing research on that side. And I was asking, actually, I asked Dr. Biesiewel, I need, when after the theft of mine, I said to him, I now need time to sit and concentrate and put this thing together again. So he said, he'll appoint me as a research officer at NIPR, and all I come and do is I come and finish that part of the project. Now that was heaven on earth, because now you had library facilities, you had all the time, and we were given offices at Cottesloe, the old army barracks next to the Cottesloe Hospital, the mining hospital. And it was marvelous at the time, because we had all the facilities, we were at peace, and we had a very interesting man living in half the quarters, Dr. The name is right or White, ex-Chief Justice of Nigeria or Ghana, and for Wits to get hold of his total library, they gave him offices and living quarters, and he worked from there, and he was our next door neighbor. So 10 o'clock in the morning, it was Kasawa time, we stopped working, and we sit together in the tea room, and he tells us what goes on in Africa, which we don't know from that stage down here. It was a very interesting time. I was in the meantime appointed at UNISA to start establishing at UNISA a course in industrial psychology as well as in clinical psychology. The word clinical was cleared in 1959 when we started at Tara Hospital. It was cleared, I think, due to the help, if I'm not mistaken, by Professor Dr. Karel de Wet, who was the Minister of Health, who said to the Medical Society, listen, stand aside. Stand aside. This is the future, and these people can work with the neurologist and the psychiatrist, and they don't need your help. That was to get rid of the previous condition that you are only allowed to accept the patient through the medical man referring a patient to you, but the medical man refused to work with this culture. And that overcame that problem. So we were then, we were then established. I was at University of South Africa, and I asked permission to establish for the purpose of keeping my hand in a bit of rationalization. For the purpose of keeping my hand practically in the game, I opened up probably the first practice in Van Riebeeck Medical Buildings, Pretoria Street, in Pretoria, as a clinical psychologist. Again, there were protests from the rest. What is this man doing here? It's like the protest in Parliament when a man lands in the wrong place. Everything stops and they throw him out. So, but with the help again of Rudolf Geerling, who is probably what does one call it? The godfather. The godfather of South Africa, Professor Rudolf Geerling. He went back to them and said, listen, you're behind the times. This man is recognized. That's what it stands in the government gazette. So stop your nonsense.